Our client owns an apartment in Linwood Manor. She is currently faced with three options. She can either rent out her unfurnished apartment on a long-term basis, rent out her furnished apartment on a short-term basis, or sell the property and invest the money in a portfolio. At the end of the day, our client wants to choose the option that yields the most cash in 5 years' time. To determine which option would be most feasible, I looked at the estimated property value, renovations and repairs, revenues and rates, financing, personal tax, and NPV to determine which option would be most feasible. Due to the volatile nature of property value, it's very hard to estimate what property would be worth in 5 years' time. On Property 24, I looked at the data from 2009 to 2018, specifically in the Linwood area concerning property value. From this data, I conducted a very simple Monte Carlo simulation to determine or to try and estimate what the property would be worth by 2023. As you can see, the property could be worth anywhere between 1.5 and 2.5 million rand by 2023. I ran the simulation 10 times and estimated a value of roughly 2 million rand by 2023. I then used a more conservative approach by drawing a trend line based on the Property 24 data from 2009 to 2023. I used the same trend line method using the recent valuation data provided in the project. Due to risk and uncertainty, I chose to determine an average between the recent valuation data and the data from Property 24. This yielded an amount of just over 1.4 million rand by 2023. For renovations and repairs, it's important to note that I assumed the apartment would be evacuated on the 30th of November and that renovations would be done in December 2018. New tenants could move in from 1 January 2019. To finance the renovations and repairs, I chose the financing option of prime plus 0.75. I will explain why I chose this option a bit later. According to my calculations, the client loses roughly 300 rand by each year she delays the replacement of the stove, and therefore I recommend she does it immediately. It also seems that the 800 rand benefit per month that she can earn by replacing the carpet and tiles with laminated flooring is just not worth the extra cost incurred on the mortgage. According to my calculations, she would lose about 11,000 rand if she chose to go with this option. I do not recommend it. To determine what routine maintenance and repairs would be yearly, I used the 1% rule of thumb. This rule states that the yearly costs of renovations or maintenance and repairs on an apartment can be calculated by taking the purchase price of the apartment and taking 1% of that price. This yields about 7,200 rand yearly for renovation or maintenance and repairs. If she chose to go with option 1, she would thus need 22,000 rand, option 2 72,000 rand, and option 3 10,000 rand for renovations and repairs. To determine revenue and rates, I looked at the data from previous years from 2014 to 2018 and used a trend line method to determine what the rent would be in 2023. I also looked at inflation predicted on Statista to determine if this is a safe option. It seems that the inflation isn't going up too much, so I decided to use the trend line method for the rental income on the yearly contract, Airbnb, as well as the levies and rates. I'm only considering the Airbnb options or Airbnb option as I read on lakkerslaap.com that they charge 15% commission where Airbnb only charges 3%. I thus chose only to evaluate Airbnb. As I mentioned earlier, I chose the prime plus 0.75% option for financing, and I will now explain why. I compared the data for different credit cards and personal loans. For credit cards, I saw that Barclays offered an interest rate of 11.4% on their credit card, while Standard Bank and Virgin Money both offered 21%. This is higher than the prime plus 0.75, which amounts to 10.75% per year compounded monthly. Considering personal loans, I compared personal loans from Absa, Standard Bank and Nedbank. The minimum interests ranged between 10% and 18%, while the maximum interest ranged between 24 and 27.5%. Although 10% is lower than prime plus 0.75, I spoke to an actuarial scientist at King Price, and he suggested that it was a no-brainer to in fact use the prime plus 0.75%, as these minimum interest rates have many terms and conditions attached to it, such as an impeccable credit score. Unfortunately, I do not have that information available with my client, so I rather decided to play it safe and use the prime plus 0.5 option. The total cost of renovation for each option was determined, as well as the effect it would have on the mortgage and the interest for each year. Personal tax was determined for her increasing salary, taxable income on the unit trust, taxable income for Airbnb, and taxable income for the yearly rental contract. It is important to note that for the unit trust, I assumed that she would only cash out after 5 years, and that the unit trust she invested in would be of moderate risk with a rate of 9%. I also assumed that this trust would not pay out any yearly dividends. Based on SARS rates for tax for individuals, our client falls within the bracket of 41%, as her annual income is between 700,000 and 1.5 million rand per annum. For the NPV, I assume that the before tax MAR is 20%. Thus, if you calculated, the after tax MAR would be 0.118 based on a 41% tax rate. Calculating the operating income, expenses, the loan, before tax cash flow, interest, taxable income, tax, and after-tax cash flow for each option. The final results showed that option 2 has the highest score, meaning that it would be the best option. As I said earlier, Airbnb is a very risky option. According to ADNA, the occupancy rate of Airbnb in Pretoria is about 47%. In my analysis, I used a rate of 45% due to risk and uncertainty. The second best option proved to be the long-term rentals, as this had the second highest score. The third best option showed to be investing the money in a portfolio. Because I am no expert in engineering economics and many of these fields, I suggest that my client seeks a second opinion, although this is what I would recommend.